Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to log into Canvas real quick. Let me link you guys. Okay, and I'm going to go to my Canvas. And I want to look at the assignment first before we begin. I think it's a little helpful to know where we're going. 2350, okay. All right, and I will publish it. Okay, so this is going to be the residence number 2. The residence number 1, starting your file, it will be due on the 20th, which is 2 days from now. And then the residence drawing level number 2 will be on the 25th, which will be, I think, a week from today. So let's look at this one. I'm going to publish it here, and we'll take a look. The residence number 1, the assignment was to link in your CAD file, right? And then to draw your walls, and you'll have to establish some levels, and you had some things you had to do for that one. For this assignment, and let me just say, you had to do that for level 1 in your assignment, right, of the floor plan. So for this assignment, we are going to work on level 2. So you will be linking in the level 2 CAD file for this floor plan, and on the second level, and you'll be drawing the walls essentially for the second level. Okay. Things for a little while are going to be a little disjointed in our models because we're kind of learning things at the same time as, we're drawing them, and in Revit, that makes the process disjointed. So just know that things may not look quite right, and it feels a little weird, but it will all eventually come together. But we're going to be drawing the second level floor plan for this project, and that will involve linking in the CAD file on the second level, drawing the walls, and it will also involve changing your levels a little bit. You'll have to add some more levels and change the name of some levels, okay? I also want you to add a structural grid to this project, all right? So we'll be talking about that today. And then we're going to be talking about phasing a little bit, hopefully, if we get to it. But my intent today is to start the lecture by talking a little bit more about walls, so everybody's clear on that. I want to essentially start your assignment from last time and work through it so that you can see me draw what you should have in your project so far. And then I'll get you going on the next part of the assignment, all right? Does anybody have any questions before we get going on anything? Okay, not too bad. Good, good, good. Okay, it's a good semester, good semester. Everybody's getting it. Oh boy. Okay. Pull this over here. And I'm just going to open up a blank Revit file, essentially. Oh no. Hold on. Nothing ever goes quite that smoothly. Map drives. Hopefully that worked. Hopefully I have a T drive. Yes, there it is. Okay. That's good. Open up Revit again.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So when I save my project, I put 3 backups.
Okay.
But when I open it, I see like 4 different ones.
You see 4 files,
4
right?
files.
Okay. Good question. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yep. Let's talk about that. That's a good question. All right. So my templates are back. I'm just going to open up the architectural template. Click. Okay, ooh, somebody's been, there we go. All right, so here's my blank Revit file, and the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to file save first, and I'm just going to start saving this project, and I'll just continue working on this project through the semester just as you are. I'm going to go to my desktop and Revit project, and I'm going to call this the residence underscore Shelley Bodily. Now here is where the backups come into play, right? We know that we have a Revit file by looking here. If I click on options right here, I can specify that I only have 3 backups right here going. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. and I'm going to hit save. All right. Now, when I do that, let me just hit save a couple times. Hopefully I can generate enough backups doing this. I'm going to go back to my project, Revit project, which is right here. That's where I saved my Revit file. Click, click, open it up, and I'm going to delete these files out. Delete. And you see that I have one file that's .rvt, one that says 5, 4, 3. Okay, so I have 4 files essentially in my Revit file structure now. These files that have the .0003, right? Those are backup files. This is probably, and we talked about maybe we could route these to a different folder, but I don't think we can, right? From what we just quickly Googled. It would be a great idea if you could, but here's, I think, one of the biggest problems with Revit and their backup system. It is so easy just to, maybe your file, your window looks like that, right? And you accidentally just double click on the wrong one, right? That's kind of one of my biggest pet peeves with Revit. But this is essentially your working file. So this would be similar to the, the DWG file in AutoCAD, right? And these would be your .bak files in AutoCAD. So these 1, 2, 3 files, those are your backups, essentially.
Why did you do that? This is a BAK file.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It would make sense, right? Or it would make sense. I think maybe this was their way of saying, hey, look, it's a backup, right? But it's too confusing. It's too confusing. And by the time you've opened it up, it's kind of already too late. You know what I mean? So I wish they would route it somewhere else. They would make it look different, make the icon even look red or blue, something different from the blue, but they don't. So you just want to make sure that you're always constantly aware of this and opening up this file, okay?
It's weird because I have 5 in total, actually.
You have 5?
Yeah, like 5. Yeah.
So did you not set your backups to have 3?
I did. But it looks like this one is repeated somehow.
Oh, you have 4. So you just have an extra backup. You have an extra backup.
Yeah.
But they just start sequentially numbering. So like 3 is oldest, 5 is newest. I think. You just have an extra backup.
Mine's the same. Mine is the same thing. So it gave me an extra. Like these are 7, 8, and 9. I have 1. I don't know why. It's set to 3.
That is odd.
Yes.
I mean, let me hit save again. That is weird. So you guys, even though you hit 3, you're generating 4. I would maybe just try and delete the oldest one and see if it will maintain just doing 3. Because if I come here and oh, come on. If I look at this, right? And I'm in here and I Control S, save, 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 save. Oh, it kind of changed that one for a second, right? I don't think I've ever noticed that. Save, 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 save. But mine's only maintaining 3 as well.
I got rid of the oldest one and now it's only saving 3.
It's only saving 3, so you just had a some weirdness.
Extra
Go
backup.
figure, right? One other problem with the backup files that you're going to find, because I've had this problem before, is that if you accidentally open a backup file and then like you open it and you didn't mean to and you close it out, it's still going to remember that backup file in your history right here. So if you open this up and you think, hey, I just want to open the residence, I've been working on it, right? If you're not careful, you could open up a backup file from this saved location as well, right? Warnings all over the place, right? Don't do it. It's easy to do. Guaranteed you will do it, right? It happened. I have done it before, right? It does happen. So I think my best advice is keep maybe a separate copy of your files somewhere else so that you can, if you make a mistake, you can fix it. I don't really know the best workflow because it's just confusing. All right. So let's talk about, I want to talk about walls again, but in doing so, I'm just going to start working through the assignment that you have, that I assigned last week, so that you can see me get started on it, see how I would work through it, right? And then kind of have a review of walls as well, which I've said this before, but the wall topic is pretty important because it translates to every other element in Revit, right? Floors and windows and doors and roofs, structures, and everything else, okay? So I am going to, first of all, yep.
So when you were doing the walls, you said 2 by 6.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of people were confused on that part.
Oh, okay. What was confusing about 2x6?
I don't know what you meant by 2x6.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like what's 2 and what's 6?
Okay. Well, let's go over that.
Okay.
So this is kind of goes back to my comment of the hardest part about Revit is students not knowing construction, right? Just you're not there yet.
Yeah.
So it's a 2x6 stud. It's a 1.5 inch by 5.5 inch wood stud essentially. That's what they call it, a 2x6.
Oh, I would have never guessed.
Right. That's okay. We'll talk about some of those things. Okay, as we go along. All right. See, last semester I had all construction management students in my class, so I didn't have any questions on construction. But the software, we had more questions on the software, funny enough, right? Okay. Let me go back to assignments, and I want to remind you all that I have created this information assignment, right? It's the very top assignment in the project number 1, the residence, and that is where I'm going to put files and different things that you need. It's not an actual assignment, it just is informational. So in starting my assignment, I would think, oh, I need to link in that floor plan number 1 CAD file. Where is it, right? So I'm going to go get it. It's right here. I'm going to click on it, and it will download here, all right? That, when things like this download from the internet, if you happen to miss that download, if you go to a Windows File Explorer and you click on Downloads, click, you see that it downloads in that area right there, okay? So if I miss it here, then it will go there and I can go find it. So I'm going to right-click and I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to my desktop, click, and go to Revit Project, and paste it in here, which I've already pasted it in there. And I'm putting it there so that I can find it, right? So here's the Revit file I'm working in, and then here is that drawing CAD file that I need to link in there, right? Or import, right? Whatever you're doing. But I'd like to keep things in the same spot. I could create a new folder and call it something like AutoCAD files, or, you know, organize it to another level, but this is probably pretty adequate. All right. For your next assignment, you'll have to work with level 2. So, you know, I'm here, I might as well just click on that and download level 2, right? So I'm going to show this in the folder, right click, copy, go to my desktop, and there's my Revit, right there, Revit project, and I'm gonna right click and paste that in here. Paste, paste. Okay, so now I have the 2 CAD files that I'm going to bring into my Revit file to trace over the top of. Okay. Yep.
Do they have to live with your file?
They don't. No. Nope. Okay, so here is my blank template file, right? I opened up the architecture Revit template, and with that comes, you know, kind of some specific tools that maybe you'd use in an architectural design project, right? So how do we go about creating our first level floor plan? First thing I'm going to talk about is how we import our CAD file, okay? So if you remember, we did this last week. I go to Insert, and we have Link, which links a CAD file, meaning it will maintain a connection from the CAD file to Revit. So if I update the CAD file, then that's reflected in my Revit file, okay? Now if you want to do that, if you want to link, you have to leave the CAD file wherever it's saved. Don't move it around, change the name, delete it, you know, do anything, because Revit has to be able to find that CAD file to look at it, to be able to generate it within the program, right? If I import a CAD file, troubles.
Oh, yeah.
If I import the CAD file, then I bring the CAD file in, and there's no more connection between the CAD file and the Revit file, right? I'm essentially just viewing the CAD file standalone, which means that if changes are made to the original file, I won't see them in Revit updated, okay? So I'm going to choose to import CAD, and I'm going to click on Finish, or Floor Plan Level 1, because that's what I want to bring in. I'm going to preserve the colors. I like to have the colors preserved because I like them to look different than my Revit drawing, right, visually. Layers and levels, I'm just going to choose Visible, Auto Detect Import Units, Auto Origin to Origin, and place at level 1. And most importantly here, I just want this to be placed on level 1 in my Revit file, right? And to do that, I'm going to click on Current View Only. You only make that mistake one time in an office, and once everybody in the office says, hey, did you realize you put the CAD file in every view? You don't do that again. So current view only, right? And the current view means if I look back here at Revit, whatever level I have open. So level 1, floor plan level 1, I hit open and it brings my CAD file in, okay? It brings my CAD file in, it's the right size, meaning it's a 1-to-1 relationship. So if this project is 33 feet 6 inches, it comes in at 33 feet 6 inches, okay? All right, I have my CAD file in, I hit save. Save a lot, save often. Revit reminds you, but you know, just make sure that you're consistently doing this. All right, so I have my CAD file in here. The next thing I have to do, there's a couple things. I need to create some wall types, which you all will have to do. And then I also have to create some levels, right? So when I draw my walls, my walls are defined with a correct base level and upper level. So I'm going to come over here now to my levels, where a view I can view my levels in, I guess I should say, right? I go into the north elevation, and I see I have level 1 and level 2, right? Now you're looking here and you're saying, well, I don't see a CAD file in here, right? It is still there. If I close this out and I look, it is still there, right? But the CAD file is essentially flat. It's completely flat. It has a 0 width associated with it. So when I flip to a sectional type view, like a north elevation, I don't see it there, right? So don't worry about that you're missing something. I can prove it's there, hopefully. Let's see if we can grab it. Maybe it's not in my view here. Sometimes you can grab it. I might be behind my, let me change back. North elevation, how far does that go? Let's do that, okay. Nope. Well, it's not letting me grab it. I was thinking I might be able to grab it somewhere. Nope, doesn't want to do it. Every now and again, well, maybe I can force it. Let's see, no. Every now and again, you'll get a hint of the CAD file, like if you select your levels or something, you'll get a little pin that pops up and it's your CAD file, right? So you can accidentally select it. It's probably not in my field of view and that's why I'm not able to get it. But I need to create some levels, all right? And for our assignment last time, let's look at our first assignment. Number 1, starting your file. Our levels are defined here as main level 0, basement 9 foot, or sorry, basement negative 9 foot, top of wall 9 foot, and roof 16 foot. Okay. So level 1 is 0. Good. And I'm going to call this main level. So I zoom in to rename. I'm going to click again. Main level, enter. Would you like to rename your views? Yes. Okay. Basement level, negative 9 foot. There's a couple of ways I could create a new level. I could grab this one and copy it down, right? I could also come up here to architecture, go over to levels, click, and create another level below this one. Now, I want it to be 9 foot down, so if I'm really good, I can say, oh, look, there's 9 feet. Click, click, and escape, line them up. Negative 9 feet. But if I hadn't been that good and I'd gotten maybe negative 10 or 12 feet, right, I could click on the level and I could type, you know, oops, we're gonna have to do negative 10 feet here. There we go, and change it. Okay. All right, so I have my level 3. This is the basement level, so I'm gonna click on it once, click on it a second time. Basement. Yes. So I have my basement, my main level, and my level 2. Great. The next one I need to create is called top of wall, right? So top of wall is 9 feet from the main level. Well, I have one there that's already called level 2. You know, I could create another level, but I could also just rename that one, right? There's not really a better way of doing it at this point, right? Like AutoCAD, there's always about 4 different ways you can do things. As long as you get the same result, it doesn't really matter which way you go about it. So I'm going to change this to, we'll call this top of wall. and we'll make that 9 foot, enter. So I have top of wall, I have roof one I need to create, main level and basement. This layout right here indicates that I have a basement, a main level, and that I have a 1 level house, right? Because my walls are gonna be defined from the main level up to the top of wall, not to a level 2, right? So that's what we have indicated here so far. I have a roof I need to create at 16 feet. So I'm gonna go back up to level. I'm going to click on my pick tool instead of drawing one, click, pick, and I want it to be 16 feet from the main level, okay? And that is gonna be 7 feet from top of wall. So 7, enter, I hover, and you see it picks 16 feet. Now, where I pick depends on the offset I choose. So it's 7 feet from top of wall, but if I had wanted 16 feet from the main level, I didn't want to add or subtract and figure out the difference between those two. I could have chosen level, I could have chosen the pick, typed 16 foot, enter, and hovered over main level, and you see how it is indicating right there that level, okay? So we're gonna call this roof. Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Control Z, undo, escape, escape. So this one's gonna be called roof. Okay, so I have all of my 4 levels established. Everything looks pretty good. I have, according to our assignment last time, I've linked in our CAD file. I've saved my drawing. Now I need to create a few different wall types. I'm just gonna create, let's see, maybe 2 of these. Okay. So I need to create wall type 1, and this will be an exterior wall. To make it easy, let's make this wall a 2x6 stud, 1/2 inch gypsum board on the inside, and the outside will be a stone veneer. So plan on 3 inches for that. And we're gonna just leave it as simple as that, right? There's a lot more to wall assemblies, but that information will come to you, right? You'll learn that. I'm just getting you to be familiar with the software, okay? You'll have to note that anything that you add or subtract from your wall assembly, making it thicker or thinner, will affect your floor plan, of course, right? But right now we're just kind of learning how to create these things, all right? For those of you that are like, hey, I don't know what a 2x4 wall with 1/2 inch gypsum board on both sides is. I haven't done this, so I'm just gonna test it out, but I'm just gonna copy that string of text and I'm gonna type it into Google. Right? And oh, immediately we get some images, okay? So what is a standard residential wall thickness? Click. All right, let's look. I always look for pictures, right? I'm a very visual person. So I don't like to read all this text. I could if I wanted, but I'm gonna go back because I want to look at a visual first. Images. Okay, so here we go. Here's a good image. Oh, look, that's a wood stud, right? And we've got gypsum board on the outside, okay? So you're gonna start, if you don't know what something is, you can ask, number 1, but if you wanna research it yourself, right, you can Google it. So I click on this and say, oh, I'm starting to get the idea that these are walls. That's a wood stud, there's insulation, right? Here's the 1/2 inch gypsum board, okay. If you make the mistake, you know, the guys and the gals in the construction trades, right, they'll know that a wood stud is actually 1.5 by 5.5, right? Those architects may not yet, they will eventually. But if you did, you know, a 6-inch wood stud and it was 6 inches, right? Then we'd forgive you for now, but eventually you'll learn, right? So, oh, here's another good graphic, right? There we go. Okay, you know, you're gonna get the idea. So, you know, again, this is one of the hardest things about learning Revit, right? You're a beginning student, you don't know anything, you don't know about construction, you don't know, you know, about the building process. You know that you have to define a wall type with a 2x4 stud with gypsum board on both sides, right? You're just gonna do the best you can at this point, okay? All right, so I need to make some wall types. Now, one thing that, let me point something else out. You look at it and you maybe think, well, it's a 2x4 stud, so where's the 2-inch dimension and where is the 4-inch dimension, right? That's another topic. We kind of discussed it last time when we were here, but you know, in plan view, when you cut a wall, you look at this, you need the thickness of the wall, and if you cut a wall, this is what the studs look like in the wall, right? It's called a we have a plan or a section view. And so the thickness is going to be the 6 inch or the 5 inch or the 4 inch. Generally, I would say it's going to be the larger dimension. We'll just make a big general statement like that for today. But you're going to want the larger dimension shown, okay? All right, so let's create some wall types. Your assignment is started. I've saved my drawing. I've linked in the CAD file. I have created my levels, right? Now I need to generate my wall types. And the first wall type I'm going to create, I can't remember, it's an exterior wall 2x6 stud with a 1/2 inch gypsum board on either side. On one side and a stone veneer on the outside. Okay. Now to create walls in Revit, right, we talked about this last time, there's no new wall button. You don't just click and say new wall, you know, and start from scratch. In Revit, you're going to take an object that is most similar to the object you want to create. You're going to copy it, rename it, and redefine it. Okay? And that is always how it's going to be, right? So I'm going to go to my main level, and I am going to go up to walls, click, okay? And I'm just going to draw a little segment of wall so you can see. Here's my generic wall type. When I select my wall type, you know, you are able to see all the properties associated with that wall type over here in the properties dialog box, okay? If I click on wall and I want to use a different wall type, I can use the drop down and I can choose a different wall type. And my intention today is I need to find that exterior wall, and I need to find something similar to it in definition in this, what I have available to me, so that I can redefine it to what I want it to be. So maybe the closest thing is maybe brick on metal stud. Okay. So I choose brick on metal stud. If I were drawing, I could draw out here. If I want to create a new wall type, which is what I want to do, I would hit edit type. And I get my type properties dialog box pop up. I need to duplicate, redefine, right, and rename this object. So I found the object most similar to the one I want to create. I'm going to hit duplicate here. I'm going to give it a new name, so we'll call this stone on 6 inch wood stud. Okay. So I just duplicated and renamed it, and that, what I just did, created a brand new wall type. So the original is still in my library, it remains unchanged. I've just made a copy. Now I need to redefine the objects within my wall assembly. I click on edit. And here are all of my assembly definitions, okay? So I have the function, the material, the thickness. We're going to worry about those things right now. We notice that we have the exterior side here, we have the interior side here. So I know that if I hover over the number, see my little number, click, I get a little black arrow, and if I click, I select those items. If I come over here, you see my regular cursor pops back up, right? And I can click on a function and use the drop down and find the function I want, okay? So the way we redefine walls is we look at their function, right? And we can either change this, right? So instead of this being, well, this will be a finished one, but let's say we wanted to change the plywood sheathing from substrate to finish. I could do that, right? But I'm not going to. Okay. I have a membrane, which is, you know, the Tyvek building wrap. And then I have an air layer and I have the masonry, okay? So if I wanted to add something in this finish function, and the finish function, meaning outside of the structure, goes from here, and you can have as many members as you need until you hit this core boundary, right? The core boundary kind of says, hey, you have your brick, you have your wall assembly, now we're going to hit core boundary, which means my structural element is here. So the stud, the CMU block, the concrete wall, right? The actual structure of the wall is here. Once we've defined the structure of the wall, to the interior side of the wall, we have the rest of the finishes, right? So exterior finishes, non-bearing, non-load bearing, core structure, okay? And then we have our interior finishes, non-load bearing again, okay? If we need to add something, you click on one of these layers and you hit insert, and it adds something. Move it up and down, right? And I can move it up and down through all of these. If I need to get rid of it, I hit delete. So let's redefine this wall according to what our assignment says. So we want it to be, and we're just going to do it exactly as the assignment says, okay? So 3 inches of stone. So finish number 1 is going to be stone. So I click on material, I click on this little ellipsis here, I browse and I type in stone. I don't have any stone. All right, I need to make a stone pattern. So I come down here, I click on new material, and I pop up with the default material. I right click, rename, stone, enter. Okay. When you are creating these materials, you don't actually have to make a stone. Yep.
Sorry, I accidentally closed my properties and I remember you showing us how to bring it back. I just forgot.
If you go to view and you go all the way to the end to user interface, it's a checkbox in there. Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So it's if you wanted to create a new material,
Yes, you click the little thing on the bottom.
you click this,
Yeah,
create new material,
yeah, I got there.
okay, and it creates a default new material. You right click and rename it. Stone. Enter. That's all there is to it, right? You can attach hatch patterns, you can make it graphically look the way you want it, right? But that's all there is to making stone, is saying, hey, new material, stone, guess what? I'm stone. It's as easy as that, okay? This stone material, isn't that easy? This stone material, if you look over here, you can define some of its graphics, right? So the shading, if you look at it in 3D, it will be this color, it will be gray, okay? If you look at it in 3D, the surface pattern, what we see on the outside, you click on pattern, you can choose a pattern, right? Like a hatch, almost. So we don't really have an actual stone pattern here, I don't think. Stone is actually kind of a tricky one to make it look like stone, funny enough. So we'll just pick sand, so it looks kind of, you know, patterny, I don't know, masonry-ish, I guess.
How do you rename the default new material to stone?
You right click on it and you choose rename.
Uh,
Yeah. You used to be able to just double click on it, and for whatever reason you can't do that anymore. So right click, rename, and give it a new name. And when you click on it, you can define the graphics. The cut pattern could be, you know, something like diagonal crosshatch. Okay, bless you. Now I'm going to hit apply, and I just want to show you from material to material. Like if I look at softwood lumber, you see how its graphics are different from, a lot of these aren't that well defined. You see a pattern showing up here, right? But all of these materials can have potentially different graphics here, okay? Oh, I've lost it, so I'm going to type stone in the search menu right here, search menu, option, I guess. Click on stone, hit OK, and now I've defined the material as stone, okay? The thickness, we'll just do 3 inches for now. And it doesn't call for an error barrier in there, so I'm going to click on it and choose delete. Now, one thing I want to remind you about, we have a preview down here as well. So I can look at my assembly.
How do you change the thickness, like on that?
You click on it and it pops up as an option.
It's not letting me.
Oh,
Grayed out.
you chose a stacked wall, I bet, to work with. Let me come back to you.
Okay.
Hit cancel, you're going to start over. Brian picked a stacked wall to mess around with. So we'll look at that in a second. Yeah, you have to cancel, get out of it. You're going to have to start with a different wall as your template.
Alright.
It's your template you chose.
Sorry.
So what's nice about this is that I can preview and see what it looks like. And as I make changes, I see them in real time, right? So I have the finish and let's see. We're going to get rid of the membrane, delete. We'll get rid of our sheathing, delete. So we just have a finish on the outside. Okay, so we know how to delete things. We know how to redefine things. We know how to add thickness and how to create new materials. The structure, which is in the core boundary, we have to have a structure. we don't want it metal stud, so we're going to click on it, hit the ellipsis here to redefine the material, and we're going to find wood. Softwood lumber is wood studs, right? So click on softwood lumber, hit OK, and we'll change the thickness to, on our wall type 1 is 2x6, which is 5.5. If you had done 6 inches, I wouldn't have, you know, gotten too upset.
So I thought 2x6 means like the 6 is for how thick you want the entire wall. So I made the entire wall just 6 inches.
Oh yeah, no, you want it to be thicker. Yeah, that's just going to be the core, the structure. Yep, that's a good question. We're going to get rid of our membrane layer here. We're going to delete that. And then it looks like we just have gypsum board on the inside. So that's a finish, and we have gypsum wall board already established here. If we hadn't, we can search for it. GYP, and there it is. We hit OK, and we'll make it 1/2 inch. That looks good. Okay, so we have the 3 different elements that we needed for this wall type. I'm going to hit OK, OK, and now that wall type is established and it is available in my properties dialog box here. Okay. I'm going to make one more wall type. The way that I go about drafting is usually when I have a group of tasks that are similar, I kind of complete them all at the same time, right? If I'm doing starting a new file, I start the new file. I bring in any type of title block or other families or whatever I need in here, right? I set up sheets. I kind of do all my setup tasks first, right? I get ready to print so that if I have a client stop in, I can print, okay? If I have, you know, a task that I'm trying to draw and I need to create 5 or 6 wall types, I don't create one and then draw with it. I usually will create all of them at the same time, right? I'm just kind of in that mode, and it's, you know, for me it's just easier, right? If you wanted to create one wall type and then use it, great. And then when you have another wall type that you need to create, go and create that. That's fine. But usually I will just do tasks, you know, similar tasks at the same time. So I do all my setup, and then I go in and I get ready to draw by creating all my wall types, right? And then I draw all my level 1 walls, and then, you know, if I need to go back between level 1 and 2, I do, but I just try to be, you know, I group things together. All right, so let's create, I'm going to create one more wall type, and I think that's all I will do for today, but you will have to finish the rest of your wall types. I'm going to create wall type 2, which will be an inside wall. This will be a 2x4 wall with 1/2 inch gypsum on both sides. All right, so I'm going to go to wall. I'm going to use my drop down and find a wall that's most similar to the one I want to create. So maybe one with that's interior, that is about the same thickness as the wall I'm looking for, so 5.5 inch partition. Okay, I'm going to hit edit. All right, and I'm going to duplicate, rename this interior, and this is going to be a 2x4 stud with gypsum both sides. Okay. When you're working in an office, kind of, you know, the hardest part of this is, what do I name it, right? How can I be descriptive enough, but not too descriptive, so the, you know, everything is very long in nature. And you'll get a sense for that when you start working. So what I just did there was I duplicated it. I gave it a new name, so my original maintains itself. It's intact, it's not edited. And I have this, this identical instance of it that I can now redefine. So now I can click on structure, edit. Okay, and I need I'm going to start here in the structure. I want that to be a 2x4 stud, so that's my structure. I click softwood lumber, okay, and I want gypsum wallboard on either side, so I have it on the top. That's great, but it's too thick, so I'm going to change this to 0 and 1/2 inch, and I have 2 layers on the other side, right? This is a fire partition. I'm going to delete one of these by selecting here, hitting delete, and changing this one to 1/2. Looks, oop, what did I do? Oh, I turned my number lock off. Okay, and I forgot to change this to a 2x4 is actually 3.5 inches. So I can select this and type 0, 3, and 1/2, enter, and there we go. So we have our wood stud, which is the structure, and then we have our gypsum board on either side. All right, when I'm done, I hit OK, OK, and there we go. I'm gonna hit escape. Again, if you kind of don't know what that is, right, you're thinking, I don't really know what a wood stud is, I don't know the thickness, right? You could type in 2x4 wood stud into Google, and you would find out more than you ever needed to know about wood studs, right? There's a picture. Okay, I know what it is, right? Let's look at a wall here, right? Oh, there's the wood stud. Here's the gypsum board. There's insulation, right? We've got rigid on the outside and plywood. So you can really very easily kind of find these things out if you Google them, right? You may not have the best understanding, but it will get you through what you need to get through.
I can't get, so I go into edit type that,
Uh-huh.
and then it should be, you push edit type on now.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't have the wall command initiated. So right now, if I hit edit type, it will probably try and edit a floor plan property. Do you see that? How it says floor plan? And so what I need to do to create new wall types is I need to click on wall first. And now do you see it's going to edit the property of whatever is here.
Yeah,
So now I hit edit type and I can edit.
my edit type property is totally different.
Let's look.
No, there.
There you go. I'm just saying it looks right. Alright. I see some blinking stuff on your screen, Jen. That's good. Jen's sneaking in, working on our project house over here.
I have a question.
Yep.
So in the assignment, we have 4 wall types.
Yep.
Are you
Yeah, I'm not doing them all. You can do the rest of them.
But
Yeah.
Are we using all of them? No, right? In this main?
You will use, eventually, yes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
eventually.
that was perfect.
Yep. And I'll have you change them over the course of the semester and add and subtract things and yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's all very tricky, right? All right, so I've created my 2 wall types, all right? Another thing that I like to do as far as drafting standards to make my life easy, because another one of my pet peeves about Revit is searching through menus, right? I hate searching through menus in Revit. And so a lot of times what I will do is I will draw a little piece of wall off to the side of the wall types that I want to use in here, okay? And I'll show you why I'm going to do that. Okay, so there's my interior 2x4 wood stud with gypsum board. Click, click. There's my one little wall I'm going to use. And then wall again. I'm going to choose, let's see, can I find the one I made? Oh, exterior stone on 6-inch wood stud. Okay, so I have those 2 created. I can't see any, detail on them, so I know that my detail is probably set to too low of a threshold. So again, I'm going to change this to fine so I can, oh, there we go, looks good. And now I'm ready to draw, okay? Now the reason I drew these walls over here is so that instead of going to wall, searching for the wall that I want, remember that little shortcut I showed you last time where I clicked on the wall or the object and I chose create similar, the best function in the world, right? Create similar. And now I can draw that wall without having to search for it in the menu. And you can do that with anything. Walls, doors, windows, floors, roofs. Create similar will allow you to take that object and generate a copy of it. All right, so I'm going to create the exterior walls. And so I'm going to delete that one. Click, create similar. All right. Now I need to define where my wall is going to start, where it's going to stop. And then when I draw, I need to pay attention to how I'm drawing, okay? So first thing, I know that likely, since I'm drawing the first level, I want my wall to start at the main level and go up to top of wall. So main level is my base constraint, good. Top constraint, not unconnected. I want to go to top of wall. And we're going to change our levels a little bit today, right? I'm on the next part of the assignment, and I'll get you going on that. Again, a lot of the things I'm going to have you do are to illustrate the changes. In AutoCAD, you're like, oh, great. You know, some of these changes aren't so automated, so you have to coordinate them through your set. But with Revit, I say, hey, change the level to this or that. You just rename it and change it or add one, right? So a lot of our exercises will be to illustrate that. So I'm going to create my exterior wall. So I'm going to outline the exterior of my project here. I'm going to zoom in. But first thing I really want to notice is that how am I going to draw my wall, right? And you probably wouldn't think of this immediately, but once you get going on Revit, you will. If I draw a wall center line, do you see how that works? Okay. Or if I click on the exterior, do you see how that works at wall center line, right? If I choose finish face exterior, you see how that works, right? Now, one thing I want to point out here, I am drawing this so that the exterior face is on the exterior line of that wall. If I start drawing and it's flip-flopped for whatever reason, which sometimes it goes the other direction, I can space bar and it flips the orientation of that wall. Space bar, click, click, space bar. Okay. If I, do that with this, essentially it's just going to line up that outside face with whatever line I draw on. Okay, so you guys maybe get the idea. Core face means the structure. So it's not midline, it kind of looks like drawing from the midpoint, but it's drawing from the structure. Okay. So just depending on what you're trying to create is how you're going to determine how you want to draw it, right? So for this one, I probably want to choose finish face exterior because I know this outside boundary is kind of what I want it to be. So I'm going to trace, click. I'm just going to trace this, pan, pan, pan. And I am going over the top of the windows. They will be covered up in the CAD file, right? I'm going to go all the way to here, click. Move in this direction. Paying attention to the fact that you see my crosshatch is on the outside, that the crosshatch is associated with the stone. So I keep going. I'm going to cover my doors. I go to there. Click. And I just keep going. If I accidentally hit escape, oh, oops, that's wrong, right? Escape, escape. I click on that. I hit delete. All right. So, okay, now I know kind of where I need to be. I go back to wall. I'm going to start here, click there. But I got this weird thing happening, right? So I have to modify it. I have to trim, TR, trim, click, trims it up. Wall, WA, right? I can do WA, click, and I just keep going. What if I get off course? Oh, again, you're like, dang it. The world is coming to an end, right? I could delete that and redraw it, or I could use a line, AL, right? All of these tools are also under the Modify tab. A line is right there, AL. And I click the first line I want to align with, click. The second line, click, and it straightens it right out. Okay, I click on that wall, make similar, and I keep going. Now, you're thinking, wait a minute, there's a gap there, right? I'm going to come back to that. So trim, TR, click, and that trims it up. Okay, just going to continue on, grab my wall, create similar, right? That way when I use create similar, I know I'm getting the exact same wall type. I'm not accidentally picking something else, and I just keep going, and these walls will join and clean up the end. There's my little house, right? I'm going to go and do a 3D view. Click. Oh, look how cute it is, right? I can go into an elevation view, north, click. Oh, I did something to my, hold on, I did something to my north elevation, 1 second. We'll worry about that later, but click, there's my elevation. These are those walls I drew out in space, but there's my little house, right? If I come down here to my visual graphics, oops, I can click on shade. There they are, gray, right? Whatever's gonna help you best draw this, do it, right? If you want it wireframe or hidden or colored, shaded, right? Whatever's gonna visually help you draw this, then do it, okay? All right. So that was kind of the essence, if I remember right. Let's see. Draw the main level, both, interior and exterior. So there are a few interior walls here, right? So I'm going to draw my interior wall by clicking on my interior wall type, the 2x4 stud with gypsum board on both sides. Okay, and I'm going to create similar. And here, so the way my walls work, I've got a bathroom and I've got a closet, right? And then I have a stairway that goes to a certain point, and I've got maybe like a half wall or something happening here and a closet right there. So those are really my only interior walls right now. But again, we've got a way that we're going to choose to draw these walls. So I could choose wall center line, which maybe makes sense in this instance, because you want, if there's a dimension difference, you want to split it between both sides of the wall, right? As opposed to if I draw from one side or the other, you might get some difference in dimensions. It just depends on how you want it to look. But I'm going to start over here. I'm going to draw from wall center line. I'm going to click on the center here. I'm going to start drawing. And again, I'm going to go over the top of the doors all the way to the end here. Click, escape. Then I'm going to go to the center line of this wall, which I'm trying to grab. It's a little hard. Maybe drawing is not the right tool. Maybe I go to the pick. Click. Zoom out a little. Ooh, it's hard to get that center line. Maybe I might have to align it after I'm done, right? The pick only wants to grab, because it's a CAD file, one side or the other. So I go back to the line tool. I draw as much as I can. One nice thing about Revit is that the walls join pretty easily, meaning if I don't quite touch those two together, I can come back in and click on one, click on that little blue grip, hold my mouse and drag it over, and it will trim it. It will join it and trim it, right? So if I don't get things quite where they need to be, it's very easy to fix it, essentially. Right, so there we go. Ooh, it didn't quite line up there, did it? So I need to align something. These thick lines are kind of hard to, I think, negotiate, right? So I'm going to type TL, thin lines. Right, see a difference that makes? TL. TL. It's also this command right here, this little icon. See how it kind of makes a difference when you're trying to line things up, right? Now I can do align, AL, AL, click there, click on that boundary, and it aligns. Okay, click on my wall, create similar. Now I have to grab this wall and draw that. And you see, oh, it's going over the top of that one. It doesn't quite meet that one, right? We want everything to meet and be nice and tidy, but Revit is very easy to manipulate. I can drag that up, I can trim, TR, click, click, and things look pretty good. Okay. Now, one thing I forgot about, I was just drawing these walls, right? I click on a wall. I want to make sure that it's going where it needs to go. Is it defined where it needs to be, right? So these walls, they go from the main level to the top of wall. So I still have these walls defined height-wise where they need to go. Likely, we'll have this one go all the way up, I guess. This one could be a half wall. We'll maybe determine these things a little bit later, but right now we just need to get all these walls in there. So I'm going to click on Create Similar, click, click, go all the way to the end there. Okay, and I've got a couple more over here. Create Similar. I zoom in, click, move all the way down, click. And you see the point is that these walls, they join together, right? Looks good. And then we'll draw our little closet here. There we go. There we go. Let's do a 3D view. Oh, we have some interior things happening, right? Looks pretty good. Maybe eventually this wall, might be a half wall. Let me show you how I would go about that. So we need this portion of the wall to be tall enough so it goes from level 1 to top of wall, so the closet encloses, right? Let me show you that again. I'm going to do a 3D. I'm going to do WT, window tile, so I can see my 3D view right here, and I can also see my floor plan. This is pretty helpful. Right, that, look at that. So this wall right here, which is that wall, I want it to go full height so my closet encloses, but I want this portion to be half as tall. All right, so what I have to do is, if I grab this whole wall and I say, instead of going from main level to top of wall, I could choose unconnected and maybe say I want it to be 4 foot tall. But the problem with that is that it doesn't enclose the closet, right? So I'm gonna hit undo, Control Z. What I need to do is split this wall. And I'm gonna do that using the split tool, and then I'm gonna define this piece different from this piece, okay? So I'm gonna go up to Modify, Split is SL, and it's a little knife. Where is it? Where is my little split tool? Ah, right there, sorry. It's a little knife on the icon. There's my split, okay? And I have split with a gap, okay? So I can split, my little knife pops up, and I'm just gonna, you could choose to split it here, you could choose to split it here. I'm gonna split it right there, click, escape, escape. And now I have one wall, and I have a second wall. Okay, and I can trim, TR, click, click. I can trim those walls. You see it cleans it up right there. And now this wall is defined differently than those other two, or I can redefine it, right? But I can also drag it down. Oh, nope, not yet, not yet. I'm gonna redefine it first. So these walls are great. This one needs to go down to 4 feet. So my base constraint is main level. My top constraint is unconnected, and I'll make it 4 foot tall. Looks good. Grab it, drag it over to here. Now that it's redefined, it will stay its right height. It doesn't, you know, go to full height. There are other ways where you can kind of make it sloped to follow the stair. We're not getting into that, but I just wanted to show you, you know, we can split the stair, the walls. We can make, you know, all the walls defined differently. There's a lot of things we can do to make our designs custom in Revit. Okay.
Spin it again, was it shift or control or?
It's shift. Shift and hold down the middle roller at the same time. Hold it and move your mouse. That work?
Yep, yep.
Okay. All right. Good, good. So we have our little house. I'm going to save. Okay. Want to make sure that you save. If I want to get, you know, one view or the other back on my screen, I would just use the maximize. Looks great. Okay. Right. Any questions about that so far? All right. So a couple things that are new today. I want to talk about grids, right? Structural grids, and I want to talk about phasing. And then how you're going to go about your next assignment, right? But structural grids are pretty important. And again, you know, a lot of our assignments, they may not make total sense, right? They won't be completely accurate. But the intent is, you know, to learn the software, right? So we're going to learn how to add structural grids to a project. Okay, structural grids will outline important structural elements in a project, right? Like exterior walls or bearing walls or column lines or different elements that are important and need to be in line with one another, right? Essentially. So things like the exterior walls, right? The foundation walls, they need to line up, you know, a certain way or overlap each other a certain way. And so we're going to add structural grids to our projects, number one, to make sure they line up, and that it's evident, okay? I'm going to come over here to architecture, okay? And if we go all the way down to the end here, right next to level, we have something called grid, okay? And we'll just let it, we've got the little video here. This is what a grid looks like. Essentially, you have a dashed line, and at the top of it you have a bubble that indicates a letter or a number, okay? So not only do structural grids kind of show lines of structure in projects, but they also, to kind of secondary, they allow you to locate things in projects, right? So if you're talking to one of your structural engineers and you say, that column, you know, the column in the living room is is in the way. And they say, well, what column? There's two of them. And you're like, oh, the top leftish one. It's not very accurate, right? There you go, right? And then they interpret top leftish as bottom leftish, rightish, middle, right? And they move the wrong column. So what's nice about grids is that you can say at grid intersection, you know, A4, that column, can you please move it? So it gives you a little bit more definition to what you're talking about, okay? So structural grids, right? Here we go. I click, and I can draw them using a line. You know, if you have an arc or a radius in your project, or a pick. Pick is probably the easiest in this situation, and honestly, it's probably the most accurate, right? Because you are going to align grids to a structural element, all right? Now, we're going to make this simple for our assignment. I want you to do outside walls, and we're just going to say the outside of the exterior walls, you're going to add structural grids, right? When in reality, I don't know, this is one of those things people have kind of different ways they like to do it. Do they like, you know, they like to go to the face of the stud, or the face of the plywood that is attached to the stud, or to the edge of the concrete, or center line of steel elements, right? So there's a couple different ways you can do things. But we're going to make these very simplistic and say we are going to define our exterior walls as structural elements, okay? And we're going to attach grids to them, all right? And I'm going to do that using a pick line, click. So I come back into my project, I click on the outside of my wall, you see it highlights, click. Now I can immediately lock that element to the outside of my wall, which means if the wall moves, the grid moves with it, right? Which makes sense. Or if the wall moves, you get an error that says, hey, the grid that is locked to that wall is moving. Did you really want to do that? Are you sure? So that if, you know, a structural element is going to be moved, at least you get an indication of that before it actually happens, okay? I'm not going to lock it just yet because we're going to be manipulating these. But essentially what happens is, let me hit escape. I get this giant bubble at the end. It says 1. So this is kind of like a level, right? But it's in floor plan view. I can click on the little round grid or grip on the edge of this grid and grab it and drag it out. And there it lives. I can click on it, and it has 2 ends to it. I can drag that little bubble out. Okay. This drawing is set to 1/8 of an inch, so it's kind of small, and that's why this bubble is so big. If I change my scale to 1/4 of an inch, it gets a little smaller. All right, so click on the grid. It is defining a structural line in my project. It's dashed, it has a bubble at the end. If I click on this little check mark, click, the bubble goes away. Click, it comes back. I can pan up here, click, there it is. Click, it goes away. Okay. I can just continue to find grids. Now I'm going to show you I can use create similar by clicking on the object and choosing create similar. Click, use my pick. Oh, there's another exterior wall. Click. And I can go back and manipulate them after, so I'm just going to keep going and choose this exterior wall. Click. And zoom over here and click. So I have essentially 4 grids, right? Then I come back. Oh, I accidentally created another one. Control Z. Oh, let me grab that. See, I'm having a hard time grabbing the grid itself. So I'm going to tab, tab, tab. Oh, there it is. Click. And I got it. I drag that out so that it lines up with number 1. Click. And it brought the other end with it. Okay. So there is some cleanup with these. You're going to see you're going to have to drag them out a little, make sure they line up, right? Grab number 3, line him up. Right, grab the end, drag it down, line that up. Grab number 4, line that up, click. Okay. Then we have to turn on all the bubbles if we want them on, right? Sometimes you can just have them at the top, sometimes just down the side, right? You can decide that, but we can turn those on and off. I can also change the designation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, I could name this one, 5, enter, click, click, 4, enter, click, click, 3, enter. If I try and change this though to something like 4, enter, it says, hey, you can't do that. You already have a number 4, right? So if you add a bunch of grids and then you start renumbering them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can't overlap. You kind of have to work backwards to get new names, new designations to make it work, okay? So 1, 2, enter, 3, enter, click, click, 4, enter, okay? And then we're going to have the horizontal grids that also catch those lines of structure. So grid, click, pick. You can also draw it. Let's just draw one just for the sake of drawing one, right? I chose the line, click, and I drag it out just like an architectural level in elevation view. Click, escape. Okay, I do this one. Click, drag that out. Okay. Oh, this one, I got that line of structure. And you're going to get really good at navigating with your mouse, right? I'm zooming in, I'm zooming out, I'm panning back and forth, lining that up. Click. Okay, one more grid out here. Now these grids, they're like plan view levels. So you will be able to see them. They've been established on all the levels now. So if I go to level 2, well, it might not show up on level 2 just yet. Let's see, top of wall. Yeah, there they are. So I've established a structural grid on the whole entire system of the building now, right? It's not that I can't change it or that it's not I can still manipulate it, but now when I go to work on level 2, it says, hey, remember, you've got these structural lines you have to pay attention to, right? And if you need to add more walls or more structural, elements, then you need to maybe add another grid or something, okay? I'm going to close this out. I'm going to clean up my grids a little bit. Turn some bobbles on, right? Some bubble heads there. And
So you're only doing the exterior lines, right?
yep, we're just going to do the exterior. In reality, you would want to designate anything that's a structural bearing line, essentially, right? Like if, the stair has a structural bearing wall or something, you'll want to designate that too, right? But we're going to, again, keep it simple, okay? But good practice, right? Work with your engineers, your structural engineers, and they will help you establish the best structural grid you can, that you need. But this is what it looks like. And so ours goes 1, 2, 3, 4. But we don't really want 5, 6, 7, 8 horizontal. We'll do A, enter, B, come on, B, enter. And you'll notice that if I change it on one side, it changes it on the other, right? And if we looked at level 2, you would also notice that it translates up to level 2. Okay, so C, D, enter. So now if I say, hey, that top corner, that project, I don't really like it, you'll say, well, what top corner? And you can say, well, at the intersection of A and 1, something is happening there, right? You can have a conversation about it.
Is there a standard that you should go with, like, left or right with ones and letters, or with numbers or letters, or up and down with letters or numbers?
It is
Is there
more,
a standard practice?
it is, let me look at this.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either right now. No, I think it is a, you know what, I don't necessarily think that, it might be more common to have the letters at the top actually, and then the numbers go down the side, like you say a grid A5 or B6 or whatever. So I probably did the opposite, but I mean, I don't really think it matters too much, right? But it is probably more standard to have the letters at the top. All right, so we have our grid lines, right? So to start a project, you start the project, you're gonna save it, you're gonna establish vertical elements, right? Like level 1, 2, 3, 4. You are going to link in a CAD file so that you have, the project that's, and I say link in a CAD file, that is not always the case, right? You may start a drawing from scratch. So you're designing it in Revit only, But there is the instance where you're working with another designer and they say, we have the floor plan, just translate it into into Revit, from AutoCAD into Revit. Great. We link in our CAD file, we save that, we create some wall types, we start drawing walls. Once we have a few walls established, you think to yourself, okay, let's establish a grid system, right? So that we keep all of our bearing walls and our bearing lines straight and everything makes sense. We establish a structural grid, okay? So that's kind of the way you're going to start a project, right? So your assignment, you're going to start your assignment like this. And we've drawn level 1. Of course, we have another level that we have to draw. We have a lot of other things to be doing. Before I get to level 2, I want to bring up another topic, okay? So when you're working in an office, you might not always be working on brand new projects. You might be doing remodels, right? So Revit has to understand, you know, right now we're defining a lot of things in Revit, where the levels are, where the grids are, where the walls go, you know, to and from. But another kind of important thing that you want to establish at the very beginning of a project is what is new and what is existing, right? Is this an existing house that we're putting a little addition on the back of that's brand new? Is this a brand new new construction home where everything is brand new, right? Revit really needs to know what elements are new, what are existing, and it needs to know that so that it can kind of demo existing elements that need to go away and keep new elements that need to stay. So this is actually a fairly easy system, and this is by far and away a huge advantage, I think, over AutoCAD. But if I click on a wall, for example, right, I can find out a lot about that wall using the properties dialog box, right? What type of wall it is, how it was drawn, where its base is, where its top constraint is, if there's an offset, right? Length, area, volume, and then at the very bottom here, phasing, okay? Is this a new construction wall? Or if I click down, is it existing? So I click on existing, right? Those of you that work doing construction, you can probably recognize this, right? Existing elements are generally either grayed out, okay, or they don't have any definition to them. So they have a different visual appearance than brand new construction, right? So, you know, going back to the idea that plans need to be graphically correct and that you need to be able to look at them and read them like a book, right? Existing items don't have as much definition and they're usually grayed out, okay? Items that are going to be demolished or demoed, taken out, are usually dashed, right? So we're going to start seeing some of those graphics happening. Yep.
I missed the part where you changed your grids from 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch.
So all I have all the grids there.
Yeah.
I didn't change the grids, I just changed the scale of the view. So I just came down here.
Oh, it's just down. Oh man.
You're still thinking AutoCAD, man.
Wait, mine says 1/8 inch.
It's quarter, yeah, quarter. So if I change mine to 1/8, the grids get larger and they overlap. So I'd have to click on one and I'd have to use that little elbow right there and move it out of the way, just like a grid or a level. But I'm going to change this back to 1/4 inch because I think it's probably more appropriate. There we go.
They all do it at once.
Yeah, it's magic, right? I know it's the best thing. Annotation is really fantastic in Revit. I mean, you just can't beat it. You can't beat it. All right, so if I want to change all of these walls to existing, I'm going to tab while I'm hovering over one, click, and I can come over here and phase created is existing. Great. Now all of those walls are slightly grayed. There's no definition even at a high detail level, okay? And I know now that those are existing elements. So if I want to create, you know, an addition on here, I could come over and click on wall, choose my exterior wall. We'll just choose that one. Make sure, well, I can draw, well, I have to draw it first. Let me draw one here, click. If we're adding an addition over here from grid line 1, 2, 3, right? And I click on this wall, it says new construction, right? And what's great about that is that visually I can see existing and I can see new, right? The other great thing about this is that not only can I say this is existing, this is new, I can say, I can set my view to be new construction or existing or a lot of in-betweens, okay? So right now, my view is set to show new construction, okay? Great. As it is defined, new construction means the new elements and the existing elements. Great. But what happens if, for example, this wall needs to be demolished because we're expanding the living room and dining room? We don't need this wall anymore. We need it to go away. Okay. I want to show you something else. And we'll talk about this more through the semester so you won't forget about it. What's that? We need to demo the wall? Is that what you're going to say? Well, not anymore, right? We're going to get some steel. We're going to put a, we're going to bear it on a brand new, giant, expensive piece of steel and make that space open and usable. He's having a heart attack over there. Steel? What? Okay, so we're going to take this and we are going to remove it, okay? So I click on it, and instead of existing, just existing, I'm going to choose the phase to demolish that wall as new construction. Okay? And when I do that, it dashes, right? So I can say, here's an existing wall that's going to be demoed, and here's the new wall that we are adding. Okay? Now you're like, well, but I don't really want to see that dashed wall, right? It goes away eventually. I just want to see the finished product. And so we have what are called phase filters. So in this view alone, this is a lot of information, but we'll go over it again, right? In this view alone, instead of showing all, I can show previous plus new. So the previous phase, which is existing, plus the new construction phase. And that well, the CAD file shows, but that goes away, right? So I guess my point is, you know, when you're doing this, you want to think of what you're doing, right? Is it an addition? Is it all brand new construction? And we know that we have phases that we'll work with to do that, okay? I think for this assignment, I think I maybe had you work with the phases. Not manipulating them to this extent, but let's see. Yeah, I want you to put everything on an existing phase. Okay, so that just means that if you draw it, when you're done, you know, you could grab it and click on existing and it appears existing. Okay, and you'll be able to tell because it will be shaded gray tone instead of dark black. Yep.
You know, when you click one wall and tab, if I move my mouse away to click that, it all disappears.
It does disappear. So if I hover and I tab, it's there. I have to click to set that selection. If I hover and I tab and I move my mouse, I've broken that selection. You have to click to select it, to set the selection. All right, so I think, you know, pretty good foundation. You know how to create all of these things now, right? You can probably see into the future. You're gonna have to create this model, but then we're gonna remodel it likely and add some phases and demo a few things, right? Which is just common. It happens every day, right? All right. I think, let me just take a couple more minutes and I'm going to talk about, I want to talk about for your assignment, you know, you've drawn level 1, but you're going to, for this next assignment, draw level 2. All right. And it's going to require you to change a few things. You're going to have to change some levels. You're going to have to change the name of some levels. You're going to have to change the height of those levels, all right? You're going to probably link in another CAD file. And I'm going to say, yeah, I think you're going to have to link in another CAD file. I was going to say,
So do you want us to link it or do you want us to import it?
sorry, just either one. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. Sorry, I keep using the terms interchangeably. It doesn't really matter because we're going to delete them in the end. But just know the difference between the two, right? Linking and importing. Yeah. So we're going to change some levels. We're going to redefine them, give them new names, change the heights. Okay. You're going to bring I'll say bring. You're going to bring the CAD file in, and you're going to draw level 2. All right. So what that means in our world right now, as it is defined in this assignment, we are going to have to extend these exterior walls up another level, right? We are going to have a CAD file on level 2 that we can trace. we're going to have a level 2 datum and also another top of wall datum so that we can define our second level walls from the second level up to the top of wall of the second level. Okay. So I'll go through, I'm going to move quickly because you're going to do this on your assignment, and next time when we meet again, if you have questions, we can talk about it, but I'll quickly go through how you can do that on level 2. All right. And keeping in mind that like the north elevation, right, we have the basement, the main level, the top of wall, and the roof. Okay. Let me see if I can get our assignment on the same page, same screen here. What's that? We do need 3 screens, right? Okay. So if it were me, I probably would likely change my levels first, but you don't have to. You could link your CAD file in, bring your CAD file in. But what we're going to do is I would probably change my levels first. Okay, so here it says our main level is going to be at 0. Our basement's still at -9 feet. But now this one, and it's defined up here, but now instead of having this called top of wall, this is going to be called bottom of structure. Okay, let me show you why. So I'm going to call this bottom of structure. Yes. Okay, because my walls are going to go from here to there for the main level, and they're going to be 9 feet tall, right? Then I'm going to have a floor joist. So that is bottom of structure, right? I'm going to have a floor joist living there, and then I'm going to have level 2. So right now we don't know how to do floors. This is why our model is going to look a little weird, because we're going to have gaps in it, right? And we have elements for everything in this house. But I'm going to call this bottom of structure. And then we're going to have level 2, which is going to be 10 feet. So there's going to be a gap between the bottom of structure and level 2. I'm going to create another level. I'm going to pick. And level 2 needs to be at 10 feet. So I'm going to go another route that I didn't go before. I'm going to type 10 foot. And instead of hovering over bottom of structure, I'm going to hover over main level. Click. And it creates a 10-foot high level, just a foot above bottom of structure. And they're all one over the top of each other. I don't like that, right? I'm going to change this scale to 1/4 of an inch in the elevation as well, because I think it's appropriate, but also because the annotation becomes more manageable. But these two are still overlapping, so I know if I click on one, I zoom in there, there's a little elbow, right? Click. And I'm going to drag that up above that text so that it's more readable. Now that's going to be called level 2. Welcome to the world of Revit, people, right? Level 2. Would you like to rename the level? Yes. Nothing is ever easy. Okay, so now instead of what I had before, I have a main level, bottom of structure, and a level 2. I'm going to change bottom of structure to so it doesn't wrap the text. Okay, looks good. I have my basement, my main level, my bottom of structure, level 2. Okay, level 2 doesn't go up to roof though. It's going to go up to another top of wall, right? So I have another top of wall that's at 19 feet here. Okay, 19 feet is also 9 feet above level 2. Okay, so I'm going to create another level. Don't worry, I'll post my video. You guys can watch it all over again. Click a pick option to create a new level. Offset is 9 foot, enter. Okay. Now what's confusing about this is my roof is now below that, so I'm going to also have to change my roof, right? It's a good exercise in changing levels, which you'll have to worry about, right, in real projects. And these levels mean something. It's not just an AutoCAD symbol you move around. It's defining architectural elements, so they have to be correct. So we have to take time to define them well. All right, so I'm going to take my level 3, and it's going to be called top of wall. Enter. Yes. But that means my roof now needs to be redefined, and the roof is going to be 25 feet above the main level. All of these are going to be, they make sense when they're defined, but this is going to be now 25 feet, and I don't really want to use a dimension or grab it and drag it. I don't want to really do that, so I'm going to click on the dimension, type 25, hit enter, and it goes all the way to there, where it should be, right? So I have my basement, I have my main level, I have my bottom of structure, so now my walls on my main level are going to go from main level to bottom of structure. Now this level, bottom of structure, let me just draw some comparisons. This was already defined. We just renamed it, right? So what do you think happened to all those walls that I already have drawn? Well, instead of saying going from main level up to top of wall, now it says from main level up to bottom of structure, right? It doesn't, take them up to that top of wall, that new level. It just still takes them up to this level we defined and changed the name, right? And it updates that change, the name change. We have level 2, 10 foot, and top of wall. Okay, this is a relatively simple project, right? And look at all of the levels you're already associating in here and creating. Think about a large scale project, right? There's hundreds of levels in there. Okay, so now, if I go to main level, click, I still have all, I'm gonna just maximize this. I still have all of my same walls. Nothing was deleted or moved. If I click on one of my walls, it says, hey, main level up to bottom of structure. Great. So everything here still looks really good. But when I want to now go and draw my level 2 walls, I'm gonna go to level 2, click, and all I really kind of have now is my structural grid, okay? So I need to bring my CAD file in, I need to trace over the top of my CAD file, right? I'm gonna let you guys do that. I don't wanna go too much longer because you guys will probably explode, right? This is a lot of information today. But I do wanna show you one more thing that will help you, okay? I'll let you bring your CAD file in, I'll let you draw the second level walls, right? We'll go over a little bit, review again next time before we go into doors and windows. But I wanna show you one more property that's gonna help you. Number one, I'm just gonna change my scale to 1/4 inch.
But do we need to draw the grids on the main level or the second level?
It doesn't really matter. They're kind of a 3D element, like levels. So if wherever you draw them, they're going to show up in all the views and be established. Yep. I can't come in here though and like change these little bubble heads, right? The level heads, and turn those on so they look similar to the other level. All right, one thing that will help you draw this. Number one, use the grids, right? Your walls are going to want to be in the same place on the upper level and the lower level in general. I'll say that as a general good statement, right? When you bring your CAD file in, if your CAD file comes in and it's not in the exact same spot as your lower level one, you can move it, okay? I bring my CAD file in and it's shifted over here, but I know that the exterior walls meet at grid 1A. I'm gonna move my CAD file to the right spot, okay? That can happen. You open a CAD file, you draw level 1 in one CAD file, you close it, you save it, you open a brand new CAD file, you start drawing level 2. Because CAD isn't connected, those drawings might be in different spots in model space, even though they're dimensionally correct, okay? So if level 1 and 2 are not in the same spot, move it, all right? Number 3, for me, it's always helpful to be able to see a little shadow of the level below that I'm, working on, to see where the elements are to help me draw the second level. So Revit has what is called an underlay option. And if I hit escape and I have nothing selected, I come over here to my properties dialog box, and here we have an underlay area, underlay. And at this base level, I'm gonna click, and if I choose main level, you see I get a very ghosty shadow of the level below. Isn't that nice? What's nice about this is that I can't select it. I can't grab them and move them and delete them and alter them, but I can see them. So that really helps me, so I know that I'm getting things in the right spot, right? I generally can say, I know the exterior walls will be in the same spot on this house, right? So I may not even need my CAD file to draw the exterior walls, right? But if you're bringing it in, you can still help it can help you place things. But you may not need it. You may, and let me say this, if you don't feel like you need to link the CAD file in, don't do it. I'm just saying it's a good idea, you know, because you're still kind of new at this, figuring it out. But you might be able to use the dimensions on the CAD file from AutoCAD and the existing information you have to draw, right? So that's really helpful. Now, one thing about this is that it will print. So if you leave this on and you print, you'll get a ghosty view of the level below, right? Which you may not want. So to turn it back off, escape, escape, I have nothing selected. And I come back over here to range base level, none. And it goes away. Okay, and you can do that in any view. So if I go to level 1, let me draw just some weirdness up here. If I go to level 1, main level, and I want to see what's upstairs, right? I can escape, escape, nothing is selected, choose my underlay, and go to see level 2. And it gives me a ghosty view of what's going on level 2. Okay. Okay, final thing for today, and I promise I'll stop. If you're done with this CAD file and you don't need it anymore, select it, unpin it, and hit delete, and it goes away forever. Okay? You can always bring it back in if you need to, but if you're done with it and you're thinking this project is simple enough that I don't need to view it anymore, you can just delete it. Okay?
To move it, do you use the move command, or can you just click on it and drag it?
You can click and drag it, or you could use the move command. Yeah. Yep. So let me undo that. If I needed to move this CAD file, let's say it came in the wrong spot, like I was suggesting, could happen, I don't know if it will. If it came in over here, I could click on it, MV move, grab this outside corner, right? You see that? Click. And then zoom out, pan, 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 and move it to wherever it needed to go. Yeah. Delete. I'm going to undo a few of those things I just did. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? It was a lot. Yep.
You wanna show me something?
Sure. By yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
I can't explain it.
Okay.
Does it come into the scale of your drawing immediately?
Uh-huh. I know, it's magic, right? It's magic. Yes. All right. So your assignment is on Canvas. I will post this YouTube video today, and I will go get the other one that didn't fully upload, and I'll post that one so that you have both of them. But other than that, I will just, that was all for today. That was a lot for today, but that was all.